Joining us now from Washington, Tara Maller, Senior Policy Advisor for the Counter-Extremism Project, and still with us in New York, my guest host for the Our Techonomy CEO, David Kirkpatrick. So, Tara, first of all, explain the significance of some of the content removal that we've seen more recently.
Absolutely. I remember being here with you in the studio a couple of weeks ago after the tech hearings, and fortunately we've seen some progress. We're not all the way there yet, but the move by YouTube is actually pretty significant. It's something that my organization, Counter-Extremism Project, has been pushing them to do. We've been writing letters. We've been putting pressure on them. There's a New York Times op-ed today by our founder and CEO, Ambassador Mark Wallace, and Fran Townsend, President Bush's former Homeland Security advisor, pushing to get this content off their platforms, and they finally did it. So now when you search for these videos, the 80,000 Anwar al-Awlaki videos that were up there, an extremist jihadist cleric who has inspired and radicalized individuals all over the globe, those videos, which violate the terms of service, are no longer up there in most cases. Significant reduction. So we applaud that effort. Having said that, he's not the only individual, he's not the only terrorist, he's not the only problem happening on these platforms. So there still is work to be done, but we do applaud that move, and it's something we've been calling for a long time.
We do have a quote from that op-ed, Tara. They say, killing terrorists is only half the battle. A new focus on combating extremist and terrorist ideologies online through company policies, industry-wide standards, and technology will be paramount in keeping the public safe. How much more of this content is out there? How hard is it to spot? How quickly does it go up online?
Sure. So there's a lot of content out there that's generally problematic, but what we're talking about is the worst of the worst terrorist content, the worst extremist content. Individuals and organizations that are on the foreign terrorist organization list, for example, from the State Department. Individuals that are on the Treasury Department Office of Foreign Asset Control sanctions list. Individuals that you can't do financial transactions with, we don't think should have safe harbor or safe haven to operate on these platforms, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's WordPress or smaller platforms. And there are solutions out there to get some of this content down, content which, in our opinion, violates the terms of service. They've made progress, so there have been steps that have been taken by each of the companies, but there's still a long road ahead because this problem keeps evolving, it keeps changing, and you need to stay on top of it. It's not an imaginary problem. We see across all of the cases of terrorism that occur, most of these homegrown cases here and the cases of cells in Europe, there's radicalization element. So it's something that we've been very focused on, and I think Capitol Hill's been very focused on it in light of the recent tech company hearings earlier this month.
It's certainly not an imaginary problem, and it's been a problem for a very long time, David. What do you make of the fact that they're doing this now when pushed, but it's been a long time coming?
Well, it's interesting considering that we've just come through a period, and possibly are still in a period, where the tech companies, Facebook and Google in particular, have been getting regularly hammered by politicians and the media for a variety of kind of antisocial projects that are taking advantage of their software. So it's a big change in tone when you have Theresa May saying something very flattering about Facebook and an op-ed from a group like Tara's in the New York Times praising Google and YouTube for taking down content. So this music to the ears of these companies. But there is so much more to do. And I'm excited to think that software can make a significant dent in this problem. But I get a little nervous about the general notion that the companies need to be the arbiters of what is allowed, because ultimately I don't know whether the society should trust for-profit corporations to decide what kind of speech is or is not tolerated.
And Tara, you know, I know you've done work on using AI to combat this problem, and Facebook is making progress there. Is AI really fully equipped to do this, or do humans need to be involved?
So there are technological solutions out there. There are different ones. Our organization, the solution we have been pushing, it's actually not officially AI because it's not artificial intelligence based. It is a database technology solution, which means that they use this already. It was developed by Dr. Hani Farid at Dartmouth College. He's an advisor to our project. It's mentioned in the op-ed. And for child pornography, they basically run software that filters out a known database of images. So whatever you put in that database for child pornography, 30,000 images, those images can never resurface. So you can imagine a similar system set up for terrorism, where you take the worst of the worst, you catalog it into a database, and the technology essentially filters it from ever resurfacing on the platform again. This can be done with Anwar al-Awlaki videos, this can be done with beheading videos, It can be done with audio, still imagery, and video as well. So that's one solution where you don't have to sort of have the debate over, you know, how smart is the AI? Is it going to make mistakes? In this case, it's just a human identifies the problematic content, you archive it, and then that content can't resurface. It can't, you know, perpetuate indefinitely online. So that's what we've been pushing for. It seems the tech companies are starting to look at different technology solutions. One of the main issues here is there's not been as much transparency as we'd like. It's sort of the blueprint or the framework for the approach here. You're exactly right, David, that, you know, these companies aren't national security experts or terrorism experts per se, and that's fine, but we might need to have, you know, an independent arbiter that sort of houses a database of this or that makes decisions with the tech companies about what belongs in there. And that's sort of how the model works on child pornography. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children houses that, and those are the images that are basically filtered off of these platforms. So we've proposed an analogous model where there would be sort of a database that could do that. And I will just add one other point. You said that it was pressure from the Hill, pressure from the media, and, you know, pressure from organizations like us, but also advertisers who started pulling their ads off YouTube because they were running in front of problematic content. At the end of the day, they're companies. So it is a really good case study how sort of multi-factors of sort of directional pressure from a variety of sources can make an impact, and I think we're going to need to keep pressing at it for more.
Look, Tara, David here. Does your group believe that government ought to essentially push for or legislate the creation of the kind of body you just described? Or is this something you think could and should emerge simply from industry activism? I mean, I'm frankly skeptical about the latter, but what do you think?
So right now they've already come together and sort of built a collaborative effort between the tech companies. So we like that idea. I think you're right. There might need to be, we're not pushing per se for a specific legislative solution, although you've seen on other issues now, the recent sex trafficking bill, and also, which the tech companies are now, you know, on board with, and also the Honest Ads Act about ad buying on these platforms. It might take some regulation on the margins here, or at least even reporting or some best practices to get them to act. Having said that, to date, there hasn't yet been legislation, and we've seen progress. So I think we can put the pressure on them, but there may be legislative solutions out there. We haven't pushed for a specific congressional piece of legislation on this. There isn't one out there right now.
All right, Tara Maller, lots of work to do and good work that you're doing, Senior Policy Advisor for the Counter-Extremism Project. Thanks so much for joining us, David.